So what we're going to be doing today is obviously looking for insects. Now the trick is they're very, very small. So one of the things I will pass out right now so you can take with you is something you might want to purchase for your school because they're relatively inexpensive. Right? Not the nets, although the nets are really useful. So I'm going to hand out just one of these to everybody. And what they are just plastic magnifying lenses. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is we're looking for insects. Generally, everybody sees the big ones, the big and the beautiful, I call them. The butterflies, the dragonflies, and so on, the really large. But the trouble is most insects are quite small. In fact, the majority are going to be half an inch, and I'm sorry to use English measurements, or less in size. And so having a magnifying lens makes a huge difference for students. So if you don't have magnifying lenses like this, you might want to purchase them because it's just one way students can easily see the things, even though they're really small, and get a better appreciation as to how they're put together. And so I know most of you are going to be, you said middle school or high school age students. So now I think with their learning, it's getting beyond just, where are the insects, where can we find them? We'll go over that today as well. But what you wanted to start asking questions about, well, what's the purpose of insects? Because generally, if I ask you, and you can ask your students the same type of thing, when somebody says, oh, we're going to be looking at insects, what's the first insect that pops into your head?
Ant.
Butterflies?
Cockroach.
Oh, ooh, okay.
Worm.
What?
A worm.
A worm, okay. Beetles of some sort. And so there's such a wide variety of organisms out there, and also in the news. So for the high school, how do you integrate this with what I call sort of science in the newsy stuff? We've been hearing about problems with pollinators and keeping, the pollinators and everything alive. And so, you want to find out, in terms of insects, they are in the news, probably a lot more than people realize because there's always going to be plagues of insects, the grasshoppers. We hear about the biblical plagues. They still do happen, by the way, folks. Yeah, and so, yeah, a spider. Oh, well, I don't think the spider's going to do very much, but yeah. So what you want to do for your students, I think, if you're looking at sort of curricular activities where you can get them thinking, is what are the roles of insects within the environment? What do they do? And yeah, you mentioned cockroaches. Everybody goes, yeah, but what's their role, in nature? And they're not always found in people's houses, but what is it? Yeah. Decomposers. Yep, and that's going to be big. We'll, in fact, stop at a tree where there's a lot of decomposition going on. So there's plenty of things sort of to look for. So why don't we go on down? I know you've already been down here today, but what we're going to be looking for are hints that insects are around. So I'll try to give you clues as to what to look for, so when you take your students outside, you're not missing a lot. Now, the other thing too is that a lot of the clues we're going to be looking for are not necessarily the insects themselves, but what they have done in the environment. So we'll take a look. I can't promise we'll find the gypsy moth caterpillar we did see earlier, but we'll see what we can find. So here's clue one, and so when you bring the students out, obviously you're looking for, what do insects eat? Well, of course, plants are high on the diet. A lot of insects, wonderful fly there, are herbivores, but they eat all parts of the plant. For instance, you're not going to hear any cicadas yet. This isn't really the time they emerge. That would be back, in July. But they spend all those years underground and they're feeding off of root fluid. Okay, so you're not going to see those, above ground, but there's plenty of above ground clues. And so you have insects that will eat leaves, and I'm sure Ross already pointed this out to you, with the galls that you see, which are these funny, and you're like, what did that? Well, first of all, why would the insect do this? Why would it do this?
Birds aren't going to eat the leaf itself.
Yeah, birds aren't really interested in the leaf, so you got pretty good disguise. Yep, the food source, right. And it turns out insects secrete hormones which actually cause abnormal growths, which we know as galls. And what that does is now the plant has more tissue to feed, the insect has more tissue to feed upon. And so you'll see these galls oftentimes on the different plants. And I think he probably showed you the witch's hat, probably on the witch hazel. Did you?
No, we didn't.
Ah, you didn't see that.
We heard.
Okay, well, we'll go down and we'll take a look.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
About cicadas? You were mentioning the cicadas.
Right.
I know they talk about these 13-year cicadas.
Right.
But I assume that each year there's somebody turning 13.
Yes,
That's
yes,
why we
that's
do it every
correct.
year?
These
Okay,
different
that's what I was-
broods.
Okay.
But there's different periodic cicadas. You'll notice that they emerge on prime years. It's believed that occurs to outwit the predators. Because if you think about it, if you're on a 13-year cycle, that's kind of hard to keep up with. Or a 17, or I think there's even 11-year. I'll have to look up the different periodic, but you'll notice those are always prime numbers. And so the predators, have to live that long to be able to cope with the changes. Oh, very nice. Okay, this is another wonderful, thank you very much. You know what this is?
I think I do.
Okay. This is a ladybird beetle larvae. And that is actually called an aphid lion. And it's called that because the ladybird beetles, adults, we all know, are carnivorous, if you will. They hunt. But also the larva does as well. And that has the name, thank you for finding it, an aphid lion. You'll notice the colors. Do you see the colors? What colors are they? Okay, why the different colors? What does that say? Warning, it's called episomatic coloration. So you will see alternating yellow and black or red and black, which will then tell anything trying to attack it, it's dangerous. However, and I might as well drag this out right now before I forget, it can fool you. So, I'm going to pass an insect around. Yes, it's dead. I want you to tell me what it is.
What stage of development is that called?
That's a larva.
Larva.
Yes. The pupas are mostly immobile for the most part. So that needs to grow up a little bit. And it has to molt.
Yeah.
And those are instars are called the stages it needs to molt before it'll go.
No.
So that's got the warning coloration, yes?
Yeah.
So what is it?
What is in here?
Yeah.
A bumblebee?
Well, okay, that's your vote. All right.
I thought it was a yellow jacket.
Can't
I
be
think it
that
had a
simple.
stinger though. It's too little though. Yeah. It did have a stinger.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
So you're not sure?
Yellow.
The vote?
Yellow black fly.
Yeah, take a look. So what about the coloration of this?
Looks like it would be a bee or.
Yeah, it looks like a
Is it a queen or something?
no. So take a look.
I'm trying to get him to flip over for me, so.
I don't know if you can get it on the camera. So we have votes. We had bees. What did you think?
Some insect camouflaging as a bee?
You got it. It is actually a fly called a syrphid fly. And so this is called a mimic. What's called a Batesian mimic. So this mimic is mimicking, as you guessed, a yellow jacket. And it actually acts like a yellow jacket in that it tries to sting. But it can't.
Because it doesn't have a sting.
Well, it doesn't have a stinger. It's a
No,
fly.
he's a fake.
Right.
Yeah. He's a
Yeah, so basically it mimics not only the appearance but the behavior. So anything you'd be like drunk back when something saw that, but it wouldn't sting you.
Psychoanalysis.
Yeah.
Psychoanalysis.
Interesting, huh? One of the clues you need to look for, as I said, you have to look carefully. So in this case, we have in here, it's probably already left, is something called a leaf miner. And leaf miners work by eating the interior part of a leaf and leaving a trail. And so if you hold the leaf up to the light, what you will see are little black specks in there. Those are what's called frass, or better known as insect fecal matter. What it's left behind, that's probably already emerged. Insects that are in there, what might be things like a moth or a wasp that get inside the leaves. So again, minor. So you'll see the damage on some plants as you go past. So again, the insect is, if you will, eating the interior of the leaf, so birds can't get it. You know, the bird's going to fly by going, I didn't see anything good to eat. But the insect is relatively safe inside that leaf. This is part of, you know, also in terms of tree defense, dropping the leaves is actually a defensive matter, because you'll notice if too much happens, sometimes you go, oh, the poor tree or whatever. The tree has enough leaves to survive, but if they're defoliated too many times, they usually can survive defoliation once during a year. Twice, it's iffy. You know, because they got to store up enough food for the winter. Yeah.
Is it only a certain kind of insect that does that?
The mining?
Yeah.
Yes, only certain ones are.
Small enough?
Yeah, small enough, obviously, to have a caterpillar or a larva of some sort eating the interior part. You like those little lenses?
Yeah.
There's actually 2 lenses on these. The little one, yeah, that's a much more.
Yes.
That's another probably insect that was in there. Yep, I'd have to, you know, somebody who's an expert. But another problem with these things that eat leaves, you'll notice a lot of times what ends up happening, and you're talking about interconnections, is that sometimes if there's sap that starts dripping from the leaf, you get what are called sooty molds. You may have heard of these. And it looks like the plant has got this kind of brown.
Well, that was that now.
Yeah, there's something else on here. Probably, I don't know. I mean, that could be a fungal disease. Poor trees, right? They get hit with everything. All right, we had a question about social insects, I believe. Ants and termites, right, you asked? Ants and termites are 2 very, very different groups of insects. They're both social, you're right. And we call that truly social. So there's a hierarchy. In other words, you'll have a reproductive adults and then workers, right? And then so on. So you have different roles. Termites are social cockroaches. That's where they really, no, you laugh, but that's what they are. That's their closest relatives are termites. Now what's unusual about termites is that their colonies can last decades. So there's a king and a queen, all right, so that sets them apart. So there's male and female. And so they literally mate for life and build this giant colony. And so the workers are both sexes, both male and female workers, okay? Now, if we're looking at things like ants, wasps, and bees, they have a matriarchal system where there's a queen who is mated. The drones, the males, do not contribute to the colony. They're there for one purpose only, okay? And so the workers for the ant, bee, and wasp colonies are all female. So it drives me crazy where they were always talking about a male worker ant, and I'm saying that doesn't exist. They're all females, but they're sterile females. So both queens, both the termite queen or the ant queen, if you will, exude a chemical. We call those chemicals pheromones, right? So they talk via chemicals, which prevent any of the offspring from reproducing.
How do they end up getting a new queen? Or like in the case of the king and queen of the termites, when they die?
Well,
how
when
do
they die,
assume-
basically what happens is that every year for termites, they put out what are called alate adults. And these alates are able to then spread the colony beyond. So that colony
So
proper
it
will
shows in the
die.
flu that just happens,
Right, that are treated differently and become reproductive adults. And you can see them emerging. They have wings, which they will drop once they've mated and gone into the ground.
It's just a sort of a genetic DNA crapshoot.
Well, no, the DNA is exactly the same. It's just if the gene is turned
gene
on
is
to
turned
give
on.
them. That's what's so cool is the gene can be turned on to give wings, or off.
But it's not determined by the current termites. It's
No.
predisposed for some reason. and
Yeah,
nobody
it's like on
really
a
knows why.
yearly basis. Where for the ants, wasps, and bees, it's by diet.
Oh, interesting.
And so what will become the reproductives are fed differently. Although there's genetic, I should back up. The males are haploid. They only have half the genetic material that the females do. So when a bee an egg is laid that's not been fertilized, it develops into a male. Where if it's been fertilized, it will be female. But whether or not it'll become a worker or a queen depends upon diet.
And the queen
And a,
determines who
right, so
gets
the,
their special
right,
allotments.
yes. And so if the colony knows the queen is at the end, literally there will be a bunch of new queens produced, which will then go out and mate.
Oh, okay, so they produce a bunch. It's not like she sits around and goes, this one's been working hard.
No, not at all. And so basically it's determined if the egg is unfertilized or not. And then as I said, for the females by diet. And so oftentimes the workers will know if a queen is getting elderly, they can tell the pheromone goes down. They'll start producing queen larvae. As I said, they have to be fed specially.
So then if there are, say, if she dies and she's not producing that pheromone, and then there are a few that are ready, what happens?
Well, the larvae would have to be fed. That switch is then turned off. And so the workers will start producing new queens.
And one of them just takes over just by happenstance?
Well, I wish it was by happenstance. It's more like fight to the death.
Yeah,
and then the queen goes off,
Yeah.
mates, and comes back.
Okay.
Right. Now, commercial beekeepers replace their queens usually on an annual basis, because I've already told you the reason, which is she mates really several times. It's like for her, collect as much sperm as possible. And then when she runs out of sperm, then remember how I said the unfertilized eggs only develop into drones? That's how you tell. That's why commercial beekeepers replace on an annual basis, because they want to have most of their bees being worker females. Right. Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Correct. Hope that answers your question. So social, right? We're good now. You know. These are called leaf rollers, as the name should be patently obvious. And again, these are insects. What they'll do is that a female will lay the egg that will develop into a larvae. When the larvae hatches, what it'll actually do is that they can produce something like silk out of their salivary glands, and they will pull the leaf together. And so to sort of create this little hump, you can peel it. Let's peel it. And what you should see inside is either the larvae. Oh, it's
There
still
he is.
there. Something's still there, or something is hiding in
Oh,
there.
home wrecker.
What is little home there?
Can you get him?
But leaf rolling is fairly typical.
Is that like there was one down by in the ferns?
Yes.
And they rolled the fern, and it looked
Yes.
almost like a
Like a
ball.
ball.
Like it looked like a ball, and it had like a little tiny black hole in it. Where,
Yes.
Wherever it must
Yeah.
have come out, and that's a leaf
Yeah.
roller.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because insurance.
Making sure they have food when they get
Well, actually, again, it's protection. If you think about it, you're a bird, you're looking for something to eat, you see a leaf. You don't. Yeah, tortilla. One of the other things you can do with students, if you come out, you can actually peel off bark. And oftentimes, when a tree, well, this is dead for sure. What will happen is you'll see these paths that the insects have made underneath the bark. And oftentimes that's indicative of what made it, the pattern. So I can't tell you, there's old books on the different patterns the insects have made. But that's pretty telling. Now, insects will attack trees that are living. Of course, you may have seen those purple traps that are triangular. Those are for emerald ash borer. And emerald ash borer is a very small green beetle. Supposed to be beautiful. They are. But what happens is they'll eat the living tree. And so the female will lay the eggs underneath, hatch, you get larvae, and they'll eat into the tissue. Remember, below the bark is a living tissue, and so they pretty much destroy the tree. So the ash tree dies within 2 years of the infestation. So pretty severe. And yes, we have them here, as you know, in Connecticut, right?
Yes.
Unfortunately,
So when you see one, do you kill it?
the emerald ash borer, I would. But the trouble is, by the time you see one,
She's already done her job.
that's, probably much too late. But those purple traps are pheromone traps that they were trying to find out what the spread was within the state.
Wow.
Well, since they're already here, our campus does not have a preponderance of ash trees. In fact, I don't know a single one in here. However, who went to UConn or has been on the campus? Anybody UConn campus? Their campus is probably 25% ash. They're going to be losing a lot of trees. So
That's 5 miles from your guys'.
yeah.
So, yeah.
There's probably not going to be a huge number of insects underneath the logs. However, for those of you who burn wood, I don't know how many of you have wood stoves, but one of the best places to look for termites, because you were asking, I think, about termites, we have subterranean termites, are in people's wood piles. I mean, I don't have a problem when I'm teaching entomology. I go out over there and I can generally find a colony, sometimes with a queen, which is kind of cool, and bring it into the lab for students to use. Now, in terms, how many of you keep insects in your room? Anybody?
Little crickets for the lizards and frogs.
Oh, so to feed.
Yeah.
So that's all you have.
Well,
All
I was ordering Madagascar.
Oh, I've got a colony of hissing roaches.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so,
was going to order some.
oh yeah, you need to buy at least 6.
At least 6.
At least 6. Remember how I warned you that termites are social?
Yes.
Cockroaches are semi-social.
So
So
at
they will
least
not
6.
reproduce unless you have a reasonable number.
That's good to know.
Yeah. An insect that's easy to keep in your room and have students monitor their development are mealworms. You can buy mealworms at any bait shop. You just go there, and they're easy to grow. What do you put in there? Oatmeal and flour.
We give it to the hedgehog.
And yeah, and you can, if you have soil sieves, you can just sieve out the insects and look at the different developmental stages. I'd recommend doing that. They don't smell. They don't, you just keep them in a little, cage?
What is their adult type?
The adult is a nondescript brown beetle. But the pupa are amazing. I just love them. They're so much fun to watch. And you can watch the different instars. Instars, when insects need to grow, they have to shed their exoskeleton, and the developmental stages are called instars. And so you can see the shed exoskeletons in the colony, and the different size of beetle larvae, by the way, are called grubs. And so you can see the different sizes in there, but the pupa are so awesome.
Question.
Yeah.
Do they need to be in a refrigerator?
No.
Why are they kept refrigerated?
Because they don't want they slow down the development.
Okay.
Excellent question. Insect development is strictly tied to temperature and humidity. And so you've heard, I don't know how many of you listen to the National Weather Service, so they might tell you how many degree days there's been. And so basically what an insect does is count the number of days it is at above a certain temperature. And so there's like a threshold that it has to achieve before it starts going through development. And so they leave mealworms in the refrigerator to slow down their development, because there's nothing worse than a fisherman coming in going, I want a bunch of mealworms. You open up the container and there's nothing but adults.
Yeah.
That's not going to work.
Yeah.
And so they keep them refrigerated just to slow down the development.
Because
No. Did I get one? No. Oh, well.
You won't land in a minute?
Well, actually, what I was getting for was the water striders.
Oh.
Oh, well. How many of you have seen these things? Sometimes they're called Jesus bugs. Water striders.
Yep.
Okay, there's some down there, water striders. You'll see them. They're They are on the surface of the water. Okay. I don't know if there's any more here. I probably scared it off. I'd be scared
here's
too.
one see him right there? See him?
Yep, they're small.
Yeah.
And that's,
Yep, see, look at there.
Yep.
There's two.
yeah.
Okay.
So let me,
Here's another one.
yeah, bigger. See if there's any one bigger. Trying to find the adults is a little bit tricky. They're quite large.
They've been hiding out.
Yeah. Well, I can't blame you. We're huge organisms. Yeah. So are there water striders in here? Okay. Water striders are called that because, as their name suggests, a mosquito, that they are on the surface of the water, so they can literally glide across the surface of the water using water tension, just like a boat. But you'll notice they always look like they're not using all of their legs. So they're fun. So if you've got a student really into stuff like this, you're going to find them in relatively calm streams. They're predators. So one other niche that this organism has is that it eats other insects or small things. And what's neat about water striders is that they use their 4 hind legs for literally striding on the water. The front 2 legs are this. So they're called literally raptorial. You have students that are in there, oh, we got the raptors, when they're talking about. So they literally hunt like this. And so if anything comes close, they just can reach out and grab. And so you saw the smaller ones down there. Adult insects are the only ones that have wings. Just a heads up, except for one group, which are fairly rare, the mayflies. No. What's neat about them, though, and makes it kind of horrifying but fascinating, is that some insects have mouth parts that have been modified. You know about grasshoppers, they chew, right? Yeah. Well, it turns out that water striders are in a group called the true bugs. Everybody goes, there's bugs? Yes, there's a group of insects that are called true bugs. And they have mouth parts that are modified at like a straw. So what they do, I know what it sounds when they eat, they grab their victim and literally pierce it with the mouth parts and suck out the fluid and throw out the husk, And so true bugs are then close relatives. Other bug relatives include things like leafhoppers, cicadas, aphids. Okay, so all of them can be pests, or in this case, these are predators. Okay.
I read Annie Dillard wrote an article about watching a frog basically deflate in front of her eyes, and it was, I guess,
a giant water bug.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, giant water bugs can be this big.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so again, they have the raptorial front legs, so they reach out and grab, and then literally stab the prey and then suck it out.
Just suck it out.
Yeah.
Oh, so you really would watch it like.
Yeah.
Deflate.
The water giant water bugs will feed on things like small fish.
Can anything do that from the inside, like get eaten by somebody and then do that? Yes, like exactly.
There's not too many insects that get inside to eat, except things like blowflies that are living within flesh. But there are a few nasty ones. Yeah, one of my colleagues has his blowfly. I mean, he brought it back with him from Costa Rica. No, it wasn't Costa Rica, Belize, I think. So he's got it in a vial in his room. They got the larvae out.
Are these for water as well?
Yeah, okay, there's 2 different types of nets. This is an aquatic.
I'm going to grab a larvae over there.
Yeah, that's aquatic. And this is called a sweep net. So different purposes.
I just had a question.
Sure.
I found a praying mantis right outside my door, and I just moved it, put it on a tree. But it was so large and so unique. I'm like, oh, should I put it somewhere in particular?
No, leave it there.
Are they common?
I sort of put that in the handout. It turns out that, yes, the Connecticut state insect is the praying mantid, but it's actually an import. I don't know if that said something about our state. It's that it actually had come over from Europe on vegetation.
invasive.
So,
Awesome.
yeah, so it's an
And
invasive
I
of sorts.
Here you go, and I put
Yeah.
it on a tree, probably an ab.
Did you catch something?
Yep.
Ooh, that's a crane fly larvae.
So,
Oh, that is cool.
He can eat that beetle.
oh, there you go. There you go.
He can eat the
Crane fly larvae.
Right? There's
Crane fly larvae. Thanks for fishing that up.
So that's an indicator of good water.
Yeah, pretty nice.
Yeah.
Crane fly. Okay, crane flies are the big things that look like giant mosquitoes. They look like all legs. They will not bite you. But here's the larvae is right here. Do you see how it is? It looks like a,
Oh, I want a picture.
yes,
So they grow in water?
yes. Crane fly larva.
Cal, I have good eyes.
Found another gull. So this is witch hazel.
Oh, that's the witch hat.
Yeah, witch's hat. So you can see why it's called that. It looks like a witch's hat.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
So. Did you catch it? So you can see why it's called that.
We got a witch's hat.
Witch's hat. Well, I heard from this morning that he wasn't able to show you.
One.
Yep.
He promised one.
And here's a one with a leaf roller plus.
Are those specific to witch hazel?
Yes. And in fact, Connecticut's the only state that produces the witch hazel lotion or whatever. Yeah, that's witch hazel. So you can see this tree is just covered.
No.
This is awesome, everybody.
Oh, I love those.
How many of you know what this is? I know you don't.
Other pipes, isn't it?
Yes, they're called Indian pipes. This is actually a plant that's lost the ability to photosynthesize. Its closest relative, I ate some of the fruit for lunch. Its closest relative that grows around here is blueberry.
Really? How does it grow if it can't photosynthesize?
It is a saprophyte, so it is like a fungus. So it essentially, its roots then have to take up nutrients. And you'll notice that it's relatively small, just like you would expect a fungus to be. But if you look at the flowers and compare the flower to a blueberry flower, it's exactly the same.
Oh, interesting.
Indian pipes.
Does
They
it,
are so cool.
Does it grow by mycelium or by
Roots.
spores?
By roots. Yeah, so essentially it's a flowering plant, so it'll produce seeds just like a blueberry. And so that's how it reproduces. Pretty cool.
Wonderful.
So he didn't see that. We'll have to tell him we saw Indian pipes.
Didn't come down.
This tree was probably hit by lightning is my best guess. And you'll notice that it's dying slowly. But you'll also notice something along by the base.
You want us to see the shavings?
Yeah, so what's probably in there that's making all that mess?
Ants or termites?
Ants, probably. And so basically, there's probably a carpenter ant colony in there somewhere. But if you see a bunch of sawdust, and that's what it's still called, around there, right, that's what you're going to, you see all the sawdust along the base. And so basically this tree is being literally damaged. And so insects will take advantage, take advantage of damaged trees. So damaged trees will send out a chemical signal just because, not their fault, but that's one thing that's given off. And that will often bring in insects that cause damage, things like carpenter ants. So they would have sensed, or beetles or something that take advantage of dying trees. Okay, so they're very well attuned.
So is it an indicator if you have carpenter ants in a tree, is it a sign that your tree was already dying? Or could you have had a healthy tree that because of the carpenter ants they're now dying?
That's a good question. You may have had a healthy tree that for some reason lost a limb, or you cut one off.
Okay.
That damages the tree.
That's just
And
enough
so,
to
right,
cause-
and that's just enough. And so sometimes what will happen is that if the tree has any sort of damage, they'll take advantage.
So when I cut that limb off
What
my
about
tree,
this
I
guy?
might
Yeah.
actually do this.
Looks like he got some He looks like he got a little lightning jump.
Yeah, so I mean, basically you can see, I mean, it's just, this is just nothing but sawdust. I mean, there's just piles and piles of it in here. And there's probably a colony in here that I can't get to. It's probably down in here somewhere. That the ants are hiding out. Of course, they'll come out because they've got to collect stuff for the colony to eat. But that's their home base.
And the woodpecker holes going after the.
Sure, you bet. If you think about it, it's like having a breakfast bar.
It's like a buffet.
And so that's, I mean, if you look at all of the woodpecker holes, yeah. I mean, take a look. I mean, there's some good woodpecker holes in there. We had,
I was wondering what those were.
yeah, we have a tree on our property that we're going to have to take down that red-bellied woodpecker couple just raised a bunch of young. So it was kind of fun to listen and watch.
Yeah.
Mom and Dad moving back and forth, trying to keep things up. So,
In history and
yeah, so you can really see the damage. That's our best guess, is that's what's happened. So if you're planning to plant a garden, you'll want to choose plants that are of a wide variety. Unfortunately, your school and my school have this thing where they want to plant plants that are all the same, you know, which is ridiculous. And so what you'll want to do is, if you've got a garden, you'll want to plant a variety of things in there. I would recommend finding out, probably from Ross, our spring and then fall flowering plants. And also, if you're growing a vegetable garden, which would include, you know, early and late varieties, you'll want to do that too, because a lot of insects are attracted to the same types of foods you are. Because if you have a garden, what are you doing battle with, right? Tomato hornworms? Or, yes. Yeah, the cutworms. Yeah, and so if you can get your school to sort of plant some stuff like that, and then you can have your students do some research, because I think part of your curriculum, you have to do sort of cross ideas. You know, what is it about insects that drives everybody crazy? Well, a lot of times the first insect you think of is often a pest. Well, then why is it? Well, because you're competing with that insect for food. You know, that cutworm just ruined, I think we actually had a woodchuck that ruined all of our cabbage, but you know, certain things will get in and eat nothing but kale, or wipe out your entire, you know, crop of potatoes or whatever. So I think it would be good to sort of have a variety. Yeah, there's a nice pond down there. So we're gonna swing down here and take a look. And I'm also gonna try to find the spittle bugs again on our way. These are spittle bugs. Is there something on there?
Yeah.
So this is what a spittle bug looks like. Let me see if I can find another.
Oh no, you can see it.
Yeah, I don't know if we can with the camera
Yeah,
though.
I know. I wish.
That's why you have your magnifying thing. Yeah, it's the spittle bugs. Again, a defensive. What they do is they, as I said, they have the sucking mouth part. So spittle bugs are part of the, you know, true bug sort of group, if you will. And so what they do is they're making a foam that's protecting them from being consumed. Obviously, if you're hiding under all that spit. Other insects have taken other things. They have spines or hairs or whatever to prevent them from being eaten by something else. So if you can find gypsy moth caterpillars, they have long spines, which again, birds aren't going to be too crazy about eating because it hurts.
I can't remember the name, but they were saying that in Florida they had this problem with another invasive species of caterpillars.
Yeah.
That look like an alien from outer space.
Oh, there's, yep.
And they are really poisonous.
Can you see that?
Yeah, there are.
Pat, I need your back. I need your back a second.
Uh-oh.
What do I have?
I want contrast. Oh,
Look
turn
at
around.
Yeah.
Turn around.
I don't know if
Turn
there's
around.
more spittle bugs,
Much better.
but they're just, I mean, you can see all this. It looks like spit. But what we'll be looking for are dragonflies and damselflies. These are closely related. They're in one group called Odonata. They're predators. Damselflies have big eyes, but they're separated, okay, from each other. They look kind of like bulbs on either side of the head. And they fold their wings. I'll have to demonstrate. Whoops, I'm sorry. Here, I pulled off the mic. Back. So they when they fold their wings, they can't fold them down to the sides. But you'll see damselflies, when they land, their wings are like this.
Yes.
Dragonflies, though, have eyes that meet in the middle of their head. And their wings, when they land, are out like this. Okay, they both have 4 wings. Right, so, but again, they're close relatives. They're larvae, I can't really call them larvae, they're called naiads, that's the correct term, are aquatic. They go through incomplete metamorphosis where there's no pupal stage. But the larvae, I don't know what just got on me. But the larvae or naiads are predators under the water. So they eat things like, as I mentioned, mosquitoes. Remember, they have the aquatic larvae we call wrigglers. These things eat those. So I'm always so happy when I see dragonflies and damselflies around, because they get rid of mosquitoes. They are just wonderful predators. And the big eyes, again, help them be able to see all around them. Now, you can buy a toy, right, called the dragonfly eye. Some of you may have it. It looks like a kaleidoscope. I want to dispel the notion that insects see like kaleidoscope. If they tried to hunt by looking through 2 kaleidoscopes, they wouldn't be able to catch a darn thing. The best fly eye demonstration is to take a bunch of drinking straws, put them together and cut them short. What the fly or insect is actually seeing is like looking through that group of straws. The image is still great, even though there's divisions between each part of the eye, because each, you know, if you look at the eye, you notice those different facets.
So it actually
Sees one image, sees it very clearly. And you're like, oh, come on. How many of you have tried to kill a housefly? Spare me. You know, they can see you very, very well. And so basically, you know, the thing is here, dispel a lot of misconceptions about insects that, you know, they see just fine. You know, just great. So what we're going to do is go down here a little bit further to try to see if I can drag out another naiad. I'll keep my fingers crossed. But I want you to look for all the damselflies and dragonflies that are down along the edge. But the damselflies in this area, anyway, are basically small and sort of bluish in color. I don't know if I'll see.
What are the big ones that I always call darning needles, the big fat bodied guys?
Yeah, those are dragonflies.
That's just different kinds of dragonflies?
Yes, yep. There's several species around here, so I am going to pray that I can bring up another naiad. I think I just got very lucky this morning.
Bullfrog of some sort?
Yep. There's all sorts of frogs down here. Oh, no naiad. I'll try again.
Are those toads or frogs?
The frogs would be out in the water. There's plenty of them.
50? Not too bad. All of them down brown curves. I left some stuff. I only took a picture of some. My biggest thing was yes. Yeah, the ones
I'll take a break here. I'm just fishing to see if I can bring anything up. I know the youngsters have got to be in here, but... Oh, I got one. Yay! Yay, yay, yay! Oh, I got 2.
Neither.
Oh, very nice. Whoa. Let me back up here.
One hand.
No, I'm good. It's just a matter of finding my footing.
Okay.
I'm gonna drop. Okay. So this is a naiad. Do you see it? Right there.
Like a little walking stick, kind of.
Do you see it?
Oh, I see him. He's very cute. He looks like he's going to grow up to be a dragonfly.
Well, this will actually be a
Yeah.
damselfly. There's another one in here too.
How do you know the difference when they're so small?
Well, by the body shape.
Okay.
Do you see there's, I got two.
Wow.
So naiads, right. All right, by the body shape, first of all, the damselfly naiads are slender, and the end here are actually these, that's where the gills are. Now these things bring in oxygen through gills, but not the same thing as a fish. And when they're ready to develop into the adult, they get big enough, that naiad will climb up on a piece of vegetation and molt into the adult. And so occasionally when you come down here, you will see newly emerged dragonflies or damselflies. They're low down here on like the grasses that are close to the edge here, waiting till their wings harden. Basically what has to happen is the wings are developing. There's these tiny buds on here that are developing underneath the exoskeleton. And then when it comes out, the wings are very small. It literally pumps them up. It has to pump blood through those wings to get them to spread out. So you see the veins? Those are actually fluid that move through there to expand the wings.
And are they like vulnerable at that time? Like they
Oh,
can't,
yes,
they're
they're
powerless
gonna
to do
be-
anything until they.
Yeah, because they can't fly, they can't swim anymore. And so at that point, yes, they are very vulnerable because it takes a while for those wings to harden and the exoskeleton harden enough for them to be able to fly. So the water striders? Yes, water striders. Yeah.
I'd be really surprised if there weren't some YouTube videos of that transition of
Oh yeah.
naiads into.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing when I'm
Adults.
thinking about when you
'Cause
talk
you
about
could
how
watch
vulnerable
that. They're not
with
going
everything that
anywhere.
goes
No.
on, right? But it's kind of amazing that the evolution that there hasn't been a need to, I don't know, let your
Change.
wings harden in
Yeah.
a cave or something rather than just sitting out in the open. You know what I mean?
Well,
works.
it is interesting. Now, the person buying the cockroaches, when they molt, they're white. So they go from a black and a dark brown color. They split out of that, and until the exoskeleton hardens, it's white, and you can see the blood vessels because their major blood vessel runs down their back, so you can actually see it through the exoskeleton, and it's awesome. So cool.
What's another classroom
Yeah.
concept?
I think that's great. I guess they're yeah, exactly.
Walking sticks are are herbivores. They feed on oak. You could keep them, but they're kind of slow moving. You can purchase from places. You can buy praying mantids. They come in an egg packet, but you have to separate them as soon as they hatch, or they'll eat each other. But they're easy to feed. I just feed mine wingless fruit flies. Oxymoron, I know, but they're
Just put them
easy
next to
food.
the sink. Put them next to our sink so they'd have a nest.
Yeah,
I get trouble with the molting.
yeah,
If they don't have enough humidity in the
yeah.
environment
They
to
get
keep them,
hard.
They just have trouble when they have to molt.
Yeah, yeah. So
When you can you just there we go. Oh, what's on his leg? The little red thing?
I don't know. I'd have to take. Oh, it is. It's another daddy long leg. So I'm not. Oh, it might be a mite on it.
Oh,
Let me take a look. I bet that's what it is. Looks like a mite or something. Yeah, mites are. Yeah, parasite could be on there. So pretty neat stuff. So please, there's plenty for your students, I think, probably to get out there and look. In terms of different classroom activities you can do, you were asking what else to keep in your classroom that's easy. Our flower beetles are so simple. Literally, you get some flower beetles, you give them flour, whole wheat flour, like once every 4 months. You got lots of beetles, lots and lots. Mealworms, easy. Trying to think what else I keep. I keep wingless fruit flies, but that's just for my own work. So, but there are some. See what they catch. You just go through like this, And it's amazing if you look down in here, everything I've already caught.
Oh yeah.
And you said there was nothing. Okay, because the student said, it always drives me, I don't see anything, it's not there. So if you look in here, what have I got? A dragonfly, a damselfly, a regular fly, you know, and they'll all be trying to get out of here, but you can see just lots and lots of things just by doing a sweep. So you can actually have students collect and sort of catalog. Remember, one of the things that they got to do data collection, you know, what did you catch?
Oh.
You know, so just doing that particular sweep, you got a lot of different things coming up, and that's just in one small area. So as I said, the hard bit is the students, I can't see it, it's not there, I couldn't find anything. Really?
Grassy area versus like a scrubby edge.
Yeah, you could
Who
do
are you
all sorts of
catching
stuff.
where?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
So you've got that differentiation of
Their environments.
habitat.
Right, so these types of nets are great for doing that. If you're collecting insects, what we used to use, and I'm so sorry you can't, although it's extremely dangerous, we used to use potassium cyanide. Now, as you can guess, that is a rather dangerous chemical. And so what we use to kill insects now, if you want to collect, is ethyl acetate. It's found in nail polish remover. It's that, besides the acetone, there's stuff called acyl acetate. That's what we use in the lab to collect. But in a lot of cases, if you can have them collect and then put their catch into jars and then freeze the jars or bags, the insects die because it's too cold, and then they can count later when the insects are dead and much easier to handle. And everybody goes, oh, I'm going to kill something that's endangered. There's not too many endangered insects within the state. The exception, yeah, I know, but I just have to tell you, the one exception are tiger beetles. Leave them alone. You'll often find those down around sand dunes. So if any of you are along the shore, if you see a beetle that is turquoise in color, oftentimes with spots on it or metallic, leave it alone. Those are endangered, and I don't forget how many species there are. If you're not sure, you can always go to the DEP website. They do have a list of an endangered species, but I think the insects that are on there are all tiger beetles, so I don't think you're going to have a problem collecting anything. So there are ways, different activities you can do with your students for that. The trick is, though, if you're doing this, probably the best time of year to do it, I hate to say it, is going to be September. Obviously, once you start getting into October, it gets too cold. And you're not going to see anything, or very little. And then, of course, you got to wait for the snow to melt, which for my case was April 12th this year by the house when it finally all melted, is that you probably need to wait till May. So what you'll need to do is this, unfortunately, collecting insects, it's a very limited, at least when the school's in session, to get out there. So to be honest, it'd be something you might want to leave until May or early
Collect them
June.
and save them for.
Oh, you can collect
your
and
work
save
later.
anytime, right?
So you did a collection day and
In
you're just
Yeah.
storing them up for,
Yes.
for later.
For later, so you can have them take the samples. And like I said, what's nice about these nets is that you can get down in there easily and clamp this shut and then put the stuff into a plastic bag. You know, just dump it in, mark where you found it on what, and go back later. And so we have our freezers are full of dead things right now, the birds and the insects. So things. So any questions about this area? What, you got beetle there? Huh? Yeah, sort of flying around. So you got ideas, hopefully, to do things?
Yeah, thank you.
Kids
So,
might ask about lightning bugs. Do you
Lightning
wanna talk
bugs.
about those a little bit?
lightning bugs. Lightning bugs are beetles. And they're all in the group, and I love the name of the group they're in. It's Lampyridae. I just love the name, and it's so perfect. Lightning bugs actually use an enzyme, appropriately named, called luciferase. And so what they do to create the flash is there's a protein called luciferin that in the presence of an energy, you know about ATP, I would assume. So in the presence of ATP, luciferase converts the luciferin into something that creates the flash. And so the way they control the flash then is really how much ATP is there. And so each species has a different flash. And so that's how they recognize each other. Now the females, because you found that aphid lion, the females are often called glowworms. And in this case, the female lightning beetles may not look like a beetle, but like a worm. So when you hear the phrase glowworm, what it actually is a female lightning beetle. She's in the grass. Okay, so if you look carefully, you might see flashes in the grass and then flashes from above.
Yeah.
How big is she?
She's gonna be reasonable size, but it's really hard to key out because again, doesn't have wings. I mean, she looks literally like, almost like a caterpillar, like the larval, but she's an adult.
So they never leave the grass. When you're
No.
standing in the grass in the air, it's two different bugs. This one's never landing and then taking off again.
Well, that's right. Well, right, until the male comes down and goes, glad to meet you, and they go on from there.
What type of environment do they need to have? Lots of shade and because I'd never had them in my backyard.
Oh, I've
and I
got
planted.
plenty in the backyard.
See, I never had
More.
any, and all
You
of a
usually
sudden
have
I do.
surrounding trees and then open areas.
See, I
for the
never
females.
did, but all of a sudden,
Yes.
I just this year.
This year
I
they're
have-
great.
Yeah.
I've heard they're an environmental health indicator as well.
Yeah. But the other thing cool about this, you've heard of femme fatales, right?
Yes.
Femme fatales. This had its basis in insects. So the lightning beetles are predaceous, which means they'll eat, other insects. But there's a female lightning beetle which has taken this to a new extreme.
The girls and the boys.
Well, what she does, remember how I said they communicate by light flashes? What she does, let's say she's hungry. So she will flash a different species signal. And so this guy thinking, damn, I'm gonna have a good time tonight, comes on down. And instead of having dinner by candlelight, he is dinner, and that's it. But if she wants to mate, then she will use the same species flash.
Oh my
The other
god.
species, so she's also
Yes.
Yeah, so she flashes based upon what she wants. Dinner or dinner or the date.
But
Okay.
That is
is
phenomenal.
there a reason why all of a sudden that they appeared? Because
I don't know.
I haven't had any
There
for
may
years,
have
then
been-
all of a sudden.
It may have been just the right environment. Unfortunately, it's
Plants are
like
a
one
lot
of those
of
things. It was an extremely cold winter. Maybe what eats them didn't survive as well.
I
Who
think they
knows?
also like grasslands that have not been mowed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
in
So
our
this is a good
backyard.
excuse not to
My
mow.
grass
My
is
husband is of that ilk,
Okay.
so most of our
That
backyard
explains
now has
it.
been turned into
My
vegetable
front
garden,
yard is a disaster.
and we've left the clover, so all of the bees are out.
I
Have you seen any
I don't
bees
even-
this year? I haven't seen
I
any.
even like having
We've actually seen a lot more bumblebees, not so many wild bees around. So we'll see what happens. So, but I think that's So now you know about lightning beetles, huh?
They're my favorite.
Yeah,
I was so excited. I never had them in my backyard, and then
right.
night I'm like,
But actually what happens, and you can tell this, if you accidentally kill one, you'll notice it continues to glow.
oh,
Yeah, because you crushed it, because what happens is you no longer are controlling the amount of ATP in there.
yeah, I won't
And it's
touch it. I'm so
constant.
excited.
It's
Some are
constant.
brighter than others.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
See,
so
like one of
they
those
were actually the
bracelets.
basis for the first glow sticks.
yeah, that's what
You
I was
know,
thinking.
was you're mixing the chemicals together when you
I've
break
heard
the
that,
glow
yeah.
stick open, and that's why the glow.
Yeah.
And so if you want to keep your glow stick glowing, you throw it into the freezer. That slows down the reaction.
Oh,
There's a science fair experiment.
Yeah, well, it is a science fair
it
experiment.
was funny.